All right, today we're here with Steff Gardner, I already got it wrong, marketing manager, sports marketing manager at Salomon. There was a community in there, right?
At one point.
Okay. I mean, we're all part of the larger community of running, so I think it works. And we're here to talk about all things Salomon, all things trail running, all things growing up in the 90s, maybe. Yes. I need to talk about it at some point.
Yeah.
Anyways, we can't talk about all running. That's ridiculous.
So boring.
All right, so you're with Salomon, and you are the sports marketing manager. Tell me what a sports marketing manager does, maybe at least in your role.
Yeah, I was going to say I think it differs from brand to brand, sport to sport for sure. But I manage our local athletes. So
okay.
I kind of recruit and sign and negotiate our trail running athletes. And recently I've kind of been taking over road as well. But athletes, I sign and work with race directors on the races that we sponsor, and then also our online brand ambassadors.
Okay.
So
how many people is that?
It keeps changing. I've done it for so long, and at one point we had hundreds of online ambassadors, and now I think we have 10.
Okay.
Maybe 12. And then our athlete team has changed in size quite a bit. This year we have 7 total, and it's been as much as 45. I've been with the brand for 12 years, and I've seen it go through all kinds of changes.
Wow.
But yeah, I work with 5 race directors, 10 brand ambassadors, and 7 athletes.
Okay, so that's a pretty good amount of people.
Yeah.
And obviously you work with, there's this one athlete, Courtney something, that is with Salomon. The name escapes my mind.
I named my dog after her.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh man. So we're talking about Courtney DeWalter.
My dog's name is Walter, and I didn't really name him after her, but she thinks I did.
Is it a middle name, Duh?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if she wants me talking about her middle name.
All right. Yeah. But she's been just an amazing athlete. I mean, someone who continually just almost blows my mind, because obviously she did
Almost?
Yeah. I mean, as close as mind blowing as you could get.
Yeah.
It's still intact partially, so I guess not totally. But anyways, she did the Triple Crown of trail racing of 100 milers. What would you call the feat she accomplished this past summer?
I would call it the super bonkers, totally awesome Triple Crown of trail running 2023 champion.
Okay, that's official.
Yeah.
Did she get a trophy with that on it?
I made her a shirt. No, I didn't.
All right, Courtney, it's coming. It's in the mail.
But yeah, Western States, and then turned right around and did Hard Rock, 20 days apart. Mm. They're most, if you know about those races, they could not be more different.
Yeah.
Just elevation-wise, trail technicality-wise, even just the altitude that they're at.
Yeah.
So crazy different. And then a short couple weeks later, won UTMB.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
there's not. Even eating a bowl of cereal 20 days apart is a difficult task for me.
Come on. A box of cereal,
a
maybe.
Box. Oh yeah, yeah. Depends what kind of cereal it is.
The kinds that rip up your mouth.
Reese's peanut butter puffs. I could do that all day long. But yeah. So I just remember seeing that, and I knew she was going for it. I don't know if she announced it per se, but I think everyone had the idea, especially after Hard Rock, that she was. I can't remember. Do you know the timeline?
Well, I kind of don't. And then I also remember someone posting a meme of the Grim Reaper and going door to door, and it was all these course records, and it was cool. Courtney DeWalter's the Grim Reaper, and up next is Western States. And then after she got because not only did she win Western States and Hard Rock, she set new course records.
That's right. Yeah.
The one from Western States was standing for 10 or 15 years, and she kind of knocked its socks off. But then the meme came out, and it's okay, she did Western States, and then Hard Rock because Hard Rock goes one direction one year, another direction one year, so she has the course record both directions.
Yeah.
But yeah, to just go back to back, and I think she kind of kept it close to the vest, because anyone knows it's hard to put it out there what you're gonna do, and then maybe not do it, or something happens, and maybe she's superstitious, or maybe she's just a little more private. Not sure, but I think that's something I can relate with. Like I keep things like
Yeah.
that. Like when I break world records,
Yeah.
I keep it close
Of
to
course.
the vest
Yeah.
also.
Just you don't
So-
want too many people knowing you're going to break that record.
Right.
But this was a perfect chance for you to pitch a Salomon vest because you keep saying she kept it close to the vest. So
well, I
which
listen
vest
to a
was
lot
it?
of like murder podcasts when I'm not
Okay.
listening to Believe in the Run podcast,
Yeah.
the best one on earth.
Yeah.
But they were always like, the detective kept those details close to the vest.
And which vest would she be wearing for a race?
S-Lab,
Yeah.
Sense Pro.
Okay.
Yes.
It's all right.
There's an Ultra one out right now.
You don't have to get all the names right. But.
Yeah, she'd be wearing a Salomon one for sure.
Yeah.
But she kind of, I think maybe she might have even been wearing like prototypes in the past because we're like revamping the whole lineup. There's a bunch of new ones coming out this year, so she's helped with that.
I mean, whatever it is, it worked for her.
Yeah, she's carrying all of her things really well.
And this is one of the shoes she wore, right? Like
so I think this is a different look you'll see in 2024 for the Genesis, the S-Lab Genesis. But this one sold out, and like we haven't been able to keep it in stock.
wow.
But she ran all 3 races in S-Lab Genesis this year. So this is just a new version, not a lot of updates, just a color update. And then we made a Genesis for the people.
Nice. And I love the way both of them look. And
I know, this one looks very S-Labby, like it looks very high-end, very nice.
yeah. And one of our trail reviewers has that right now. I think he just got it in, so we'll have the reviews of those coming up.
It feels so good.
But yeah, Courtney DeWalter, man, we had her on the podcast once. It was an in-person podcast, and it was pretty early on, so I feel bad for her because I'm sure it was terrible. This was a few years ago when we were in Colorado. We did it outside, basically near a road outside of a hotel, and it was interesting.
You just accosted her, saw her walking down the street, and
Yeah.
pulled over.
I mean, I'd
"Hey,
like to think that
questions."
part of her success was maybe came after that podcast, so it all came together for her.
I see.
But I have to say, she led a trail run and there was a Salomon shoe demo that morning,
Oh, cool.
and this was in Colorado Springs. And I have to say, when there's people who you see on Instagram or see in movies or documentaries, and you're like, they seem nice. She's like nice to a level where I'm like, that's not real. Like it's so unreal that it's real. Like, if that makes sense. She's so nice that I'm like, this isn't a real person because she just, I don't know, just running alongside her.
Oh yeah, I think it's because she's from the Midwest,
That's what it is, isn't
and
it?
her mom and dad are so nice. And
She's from Minnesota?
I think so.
Yeah.
I get like honestly, Minnesota. Yeah, I think it is. I think
There's
you're
a
right.
lot of Michigan,
Mississippi.
Mississippi. Yeah, it's
Well,
somewhere.
she's not from Mississippi. That I know for sure.
Yeah.
But she's from the Midwest for sure, and like very nice. She has a way of like turning the conversation back on the other person all the time. So I imagine it's hard to get her on a podcast and like keep it on the rails.
Yeah. And she's obviously super humble about everything.
Totally. Yeah, it's really nice.
I just remember when we were doing the shoe demo, I think people were trying on the shoes. And she's like helping people tie their shoes. Like, who does that? That's crazy.
Courtney DeWalter does that. Let's make a shirt that says that.
Yeah. That actually is Courtney DeWalter does that.
Because it used to be like, there's an app for that.
That's actually a pretty good idea because she does kind of do everything, like all the races, and wins them.
Yeah, and she's sponsored by a beer company now,
Is-
Michelob Ultra.
Oh, really? Okay.
Not now, it's been a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just was thinking like the other athletes that are on that roster, it's just fascinating. Like, I bet it's just so weird. There's like tennis players and football players and stuff like that. And then it's like Courtney DeWalter, but I'm like, she could probably do all those things too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, she could probably take them. If you had to learn a new sport, like say you took an athlete, superb athlete from one of those sports, and then you took her and said, here's a new sport you guys got to learn.
Life swap.
Go head to head. She could probably do it.
That's the idea I've been pitching as like a reality TV show for Michelob Ultra to sponsor, but
Yeah.
maybe you and I would be the only ones watching it.
Oh, I'm
We'd be like,
in.
this is so good.
Yeah, I'm into it. I'll do it. All right. So tell me a little bit about what it takes to be a sports marketing manager, because I think a lot of people that listen to this podcast are not only runners themselves, but also might be interested in a career in running, especially for younger people. Oh yeah, all those high schoolers listening to this podcast.
Hi, high schoolers.
All three of them whose parents are listening in the car. So tell me about kind of how you got into sports marketing in the first place.
For sure. So long story, but I'll try to keep it concise. Mm-hmm. I started at Salomon as a part-time seasonal customer service rep. And I do like all of the sports that Salomon has, like all the categories, like snowboarding, Nordic skiing, running, hiking. So to talk to like a consumer and be like, yeah, I know about that. And it was just like, oh, this will be fun. This will be cool. Mm-hmm. So I did that. And then after that, like seasonal thing was up, they offered me a full-time job. And as I started to kind of get to know people in the building, the guy that was basically in the role that I'm in now, I was like, that's the job I want. And and I was like, I'm coming for you. But
did you tell him that?
I did. Oh, nice. Because I ended up being friends with him, and I ended up just sort of like following him around and being like, what do you do? What are you doing? How do you do that?
And did he find that annoying, or was he cool?
I think he was like, he probably could have used an assistant, and I was just happy to give all my free time to like go. Like I would go on the road and go to races with him just to like I went to a couple races in Flagstaff, 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And like when Jamil and those guys had the Sky Peaks race out there, and it was like earlier. But I just went with I took time off and like went with him and just like started getting to know athletes. And I myself was ultra running at that point. Mm-hmm. But yeah, just kind of like worked my way up to that. And so then I was like a field rep. I was a tech rep in the field, and my territory was Montana, Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, like a huge chunk of the Western states. Yeah. And I would just run all the races, meet all the people, go into all the shops. And I just love building relationships and having conversations. And so I think like that's a huge part of my role is like we were saying, I talked to 5 race directors, their assistants, like the mountain ops people, athletes and ambassadors' moms sometimes. Yeah. And it's just like relationship management, a huge part of it. Yeah. And then the rest of it just comes from like passion and enthusiasm, honestly, because it's like I just love trail running and people in trail running and the culture of trail running, and I'm obsessed, like just love it so much. I just love the people, and I love it so much that I was just like learning it and wanted to be involved as involved as possible. Yeah. And then I just kept, voicing that. Like I don't have a really clear glide path because I was like, hey, I really want that job someday. Right. Me again, I want that job whenever it's free. Yeah. And then just applying myself and like making sure that it was like very obvious and apparent that that's like what I wanted to do. And so I've managed like our team that works out in the field. And then for the last like 5 years, I've been in like a basically like sports marketing.
And then have you been into trail running your whole life, or was it just more the outdoors and that's how you kind of ended up falling into it? How did you become so into trail running?
Well, I was raised by the most indoorsy people.
No way, really?
Like I've never seen my parents exercise or hike or anything. I played the piano from the time I was like 3. Okay. And I was in figure skating. And my parents were like afraid of the outdoors. Whoa. But then when I was like in my early 20s, I learned that like being a wilderness guide was a thing. And I lied about what I was capable of and became a wilderness guide. And
how many people died on this?
0. Okay. I was just like playing it off as though I was like, yeah, let's figure out what we're doing
That's
together.
Like the ultimate fake it till you make it. You're in survival in the outdoors.
And I learned how to like canyoneer and like just all kinds of really cool like outdoor stuff. But one of the guides that I was with, he had been an ultra runner. I'd never heard of it before. And he was like, if you can hike 80 miles a week, you could run a 50 miler. And I was like, people don't run, like I just had never heard of that. And I didn't really run at that time.
Like, did you even know about marathons at that point?
No, I was never a runner. I'd never ran in school. Yeah. I don't think I even had even considered it as a thing. Like it just didn't exist in my world. But in my 20s, I started rock climbing, skydiving, canyoneering, I just was like, I want to do everything outside.
Sometimes I wonder about stuff like that because, I grew up in
Pennsylvania?
In Pennsylvania, but I didn't have much access to, I would say, pop culture or music or things like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't really allowed to do some of that stuff. And so once I got older, like in high school and into college, it's like I couldn't consume enough music and movies and everything. It was like, but it was awesome because I just took in everying.
That's so funny.
And
what was your genre of choice? R&B?
Yeah, especially. Yeah, smooth jazz. No, I loved indie music. So, or even everything from, I had like a Bob Dylan, older music phase, Simon & Garfunkel, all that stuff from the 60s and 70s. And then, but also on the other side, Oasis, Radiohead, Smashing Pumpkins, all that stuff. So like,
I approve.
Yeah. So a wide gamut of all the music, but I loved everything.
You were just in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. It reminds me of that because, you know, you went your whole life without that experience. And then, and you could have gone, you know, it could go either way, I guess. You could end up being just staying indoors, being indoorsy.
Yeah, I think probably plenty of people do that. I remember when I got my first car, it was a hatchback, like a 1983 Toyota Tercel hatchback.
Oh, yeah.
And I drove up to a parking lot of a ski resort and like slept in my car. And I was like, am I camping?
That's amazing. I mean, you kind of were.
I know. And I thought I was out in the wilderness, and then the like sun comes up and you're like, oh, I'm like in a parking lot at a resort.
Yeah.
You know?
What was the thing that made you interested in the outdoors? Do you remember a certain thing, or was it a general?
I think it was like a slow burn. Like, because I remember having a job in my early 20s, and there was a kid that was like, I'm taking a rock climbing class. And I was like, what is that? You know? And I just was like, I want to come. And I used to be like, I don't know, a little sheltered. I grew up in Utah. It's pretty conservative. And like, once I got out on my own, I was like, what are you doing? I want to come with everything.
Yeah. I get it.
And like my siblings are always like shocked because I was the one like hiding behind my mom, like holding onto her leg and like crying when she would leave me at preschool. Yeah. And now I'm like base jumping and like, they're like, what? You know, like, so man, I think I just was like, there's one of my favorite quotes is, we all have two lives. The second one begins when you realize you only have one.
I literally just heard that quote
good?
yesterday.
What?
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast and someone said the same exact thing. And I was like,
dang.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I freaking love it because I was like, the minute that I realized we don't live forever, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of been even more so in the last few years, but just being like, oh, what is it that I want to do? Oh, everything, you know? And just, I'm probably pretty obnoxious, but I'm like, I'm coming. So I start like, I'm going to come with you to do whatever that is that you're doing. And I started climbing in my 20s. And then it sort of was just like, you're climbing at the gym and then you meet someone who's like, oh, what are you doing this weekend? And they're going and doing something that you've never heard of. And you're like, can I come? Can I come
that's
kayaking?
The crazy thing about the West too, is that
everyone,
they just invent sports. Like they'll just start walking and be like, oh, if I like tie a rope to this tree and then like balance on it while holding rocks, like that's a new sport.
Yeah. Or
like they'll just make up things.
Yeah. Who was the first, well, we probably know this, scientists probably know this, maybe no one knows this, but like the first people to be like, let's lower down into this slot canyon and see if we can like get back out or whatever. Yeah. Like just, it's the Wild West out there and there's just so much to see and do, and I want to do everything.
Yeah. No, I like that. That's what I love about meeting people from out there, especially with snow sports. I'm like, you're just putting together pieces of other sports and making up things at this point.
Yeah. When you really break down any sport, you're like, so we just put on shoes and like run around the mountains and there's like all of this hubbub about it.
Yeah.
Or skiing, especially like, so you slide down snow on some pieces of wood and like, you're like, sick, bro. And like, why? And so then the trick is not to think about it.
Yeah. And then you just invent different kinds of sports around that sport, starting at higher places, or I don't know.
Yeah, doing different
combining skateboarding and snowboarding. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So skydiving, that's a wild one.
Yeah.
How many dives have you done?
I think I'm super close to 500, like 490.
500.
Something. Yeah.
Did you ever have any close calls?
No. Well, no. Like, it's funny.
I think that's what a lot of people think. They're like, if you do it for so long, there has to be something.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, like, I don't know how much people know, but like you have two parachutes when you skydive, and if one goes wrong, you pull the other one. And I've never had to do that. Like,
oh, really?
I've never had a cutaway, which most people do in the first 100 jumps maybe, or like, I would think definitely by 500. But I learned how to pack my parachute early on, and I was super meticulous about it.
So you pack your own parachute, huh?
Yeah. And I used to pack for the military.
No way.
Yeah. And they would.
And they all came back.
And they all came back. And they would like watch you and like supervise and make sure you do a good job. So now I'm like, every single opening I have is just like poof, perfect. And like you can sometimes have like line twists and get all spun around and like get messed up. But that's like such a weird brag, but like a weird flex. Like I can pack a really good parachute.
Dude, that is a great flex.
Nobody cares.
I would tell everyone that first thing. You should have started with that.
Just go to bars and hit on guys and be like, guess what?
I mean, honestly, if anyone told me they could pack a good parachute, I'm like,
irrelevant.
You jumped 10 spots. And oh man, so like, how do you like? What's a high? Where do you start at when you skydive? Like, how high are you when you jump out of a plane?
We all start. We all have altimeters, and so no matter where you're at in the world, you set it at 0 on the ground. I'm sure that makes sense. So you zero out your altitude, and then typically, depending on the aircraft that you're in, you get between 12 and 14,000 feet is pretty typical.
And how long does it take to come the whole way back down?
Free fall is about a minute. I did some wingsuiting a couple of years ago, and you're up there for like 3 minutes or something. Whoa. It feels like way longer. Maybe it's like 2 minutes and something. But when you're just like in your normal street clothes or whatever, it's like a minute. And then you pull your parachute and fly around with your parachute for a minute or two, and then you come down. And
wingsuit, is that something you did more or just like a couple of times?
I think I have like 20 wingsuit jumps, and then it's funny because like it's just the same as any other sport where it's like there's skydiving and then there's like little sub groups within that.
Oh, really?
So there's like free flyers who just like go out and do all this like rowdy stuff.
Wait, they have like boxing matches in the
No, they like go out and they like do flips, and then they like all come back together and they fly standing up, and then they fly on their heads.
Oh yeah, I've seen these people.
Yeah, very cool. And then there's the
It's kind of like is it like synchronized swimming but in the air?
Totally.
Okay. Yeah. It sounds not as cool when you put it that way.
Yeah.
All right.
Way to kill it. Just kidding. Sorry. So anyways, that's not popular anymore. No, just kidding. It is totally like that. And then wingsuiting, there's definitely like it can get cliquey or whatever, but it's like
really there's like gangs in the air.
Yeah, they're gangs. No, there's just like we all started at the same time, so we're all like this good, and then I'm like this newbie, and I'm like by myself wingsuiting, and it's not fun going out by yourself and flying around because there's no like point of reference.
Yeah. So
I did a couple of jumps with like a coach, and then was just like going out with a couple people, but they weren't very good either, you know? So it's like I never really found like my spot, and you have to have like a wingsuit. There's just so much gear. Like I had to buy a different parachute because they opened it. Like it's better if they open faster. So I had all these different things. I had to have a different altimeter. And I was like, you know what? This is a lot of stuff, and I'm probably not really going to get into it because like my very best friends in skydiving don't do it.
Okay.
So then I just was like, that's not the community for me, I guess. But I might get into it again. It's very cool and pretty.
Yeah, it looks cool. I mean, I like that idea that you're in the air for longer.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's really nice. I think skydiving, I originally got into it for like the adrenaline, but now it's almost like, it's like not scary anymore.
Right.
But it makes you feel really small in that really good way. You know, when you're like, it like shifts your perspective back to like nothing matters in a good way.
I was going to say, I bet doing that, you'd be like, what's the point of even...
Yeah, like going to my little job. Like, I
right.
freaking love my job, but like sometimes there's like something bothering me or whatever, and then I'm like, who cares if you can just like go fall out of an airplane?
Yeah, that's a good perspective.
But I think a lot of people have something in their life that does that for them, you know, where it like snaps you out of a funk.
I felt like when I went to Tokyo, that was a weird experience for me because I was, you don't think about Tokyo that much, you know, how many times do you think about Tokyo in your day-to-day life? Probably not that much.
Less than 1% of my day.
But then you travel, but then you go over to somewhere like that. It's, you know, the biggest city in the world. And there's all this stuff going on and all these people living these lives that you're like, I have zero connection to this place. Like,
and it's zero connection to you. And
all these people have hopes and dreams that they're living out, doing in this place that I have zero idea of what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's just,
isn't it?
But everything's
so nice?
But everything's so important to them as it is. Everything is so important to me.
Yeah.
And it depends how you look at it. You're either like, none of this matters. Like this is all pointless.
Goodbye, cruel world.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Or
thing.
you're like, you can look at it in a,
Like, think of all the shit we could get into that because it doesn't matter.
yeah. It's like there's no rules.
Yeah, I think that's been an awesome thing for me to learn that, like, I don't know, just everything works out.
Yeah.
Nothing really matters. And, like, you can put yourself in positions where everything's relying on you, but no thanks. I don't want to be that guy. So.
For real. Yeah, but, I mean, you still have, I feel like being in charge of, you know, the athletes that you work with at Salomon, I feel like that still feels like a fulfilling and important job to do.
Yeah, for sure.
In a lot of ways, not just your own job, but their career arcs or, you know.
Yeah, and there's been athletes we've lost because of, like, one reason or another. And I've heard those athletes on other podcasts, like, talk highly of the sports marketing manager at Salomon. And I'm like, oh, that's me. And they're not mad at me. And that's awesome. Like, I try to I would love, and I want to just keep all of the relationships I ever have, like, positive and, like, never have a burned bridge or, like, a weird situation. And I just, like, love people so much. And sometimes it's like, maybe Salomon's not the right brand for you, but, like, I want to be your friend still, you know, like, and I hope we can continue that. Like, because ultimately I got into this job because of my love of the sport and the culture. And I hope that, like, sometimes I, like, love it that I'm like, oh, that's a Salomon girl. And then other times I'm like, but I am still a person. And, like, me as a person, like, I still support you wholeheartedly, you know? And I'll have athletes leave our team and then they'll suggest to another one of their friends or athletes, like, you should run for Salomon. It's a great team. Yeah. Or, like, you know, the way they do things is this and this, and it'd be perfect for you or whatever, you know? Cool. So I think, I love the athletes in this sport. And I've always wondered, like, does ultra running and trail running, like, create these, like, fantastic people or is it, like, fantastic, wonderful people are drawn to the sport? And I'll never know, but
the old chicken and the egg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is just a great bunch of folks.
I definitely think it's a little bit of both. I mean, the outdoor space in general, I feel like to be in that, you have to have some sort of, I don't know, you want to have a sense of adventure almost, something that's a little different and beyond. And then I think if you're in the outdoor space and kind of experiencing that, I feel like it's just like you have a personality that is a little bit more in tune with kind of the good vibes, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's just almost inevitable that if you spend that much time outdoors, that kind of rubs off on you, I guess.
Yeah, and you're not, like, sucked into, like, the rat race as much. Like, I bet most of the people that are going to, like, the races I go to, you know, like, live in more mountainous type places. I don't know. It seems maybe I haven't really thought about it.
You don't get too many trail runners living in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Although, what's the dude from Red Bull? Am I forgetting his name right now? Who's the ultra runner? He lives in New York City from Florida. Gosh, I'm blanking.
Wow. I can't believe I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like, I love this sport so much. Who's this guy?
Hold on. I'm going to look it up right now because
Googling
it's just like at the top of my...
Red Bull, Florida, ultra runner, lives in Manhattan.
This is insane.
I bet someone that's listening to this is, like, yelling it at you.
We may have to cut some of it. David Kilgore.
Oh, yeah. The guy that works for On.
Yeah.
He's me at On.
Yeah, he is. I was totally drawing a blank.
Who wore
there.
it better?
Sorry, David. But he's an awesome dude. I think he lives in New York City right now.
Oh, wow.
And he'll just get out to the trails and stuff and still does some cool stuff.
Yeah.
But speaking of the rat race, I feel like trail running's kind of blowing up right now, or it has been for the last several years. And I feel like things are changing in the industry, not just on the, on your side, but on the athlete side as well. What have you seen since you've been in the industry, or at least with Salomon for in this position for 12 years?
No,
I'm sorry.
This position for 5.
Okay, but with Salomon for 12 years.
Well, 11 and a half.
Yeah, we'll say 12. We round up here.
Yeah, thanks.
We round, unless it's a race.
We just round.
Unless it's a finishing time, then we round down.
And we round down. I like it. It's a situational thing.
Yeah. But what have you seen in the last decade or so? Changes in the industry, especially with trail running?
Yeah. I think back to some of my first ultras that I ran, and that's one thing that I've seen change is, like, trail running almost used to feel synonymous with ultra running. That was like, if you're a
Yeah,
trail
that's a
runner,
good
you're an
point.
ultra runner. And
Yeah.
it's like, that was never, it's like this unwritten rule that it just seems that way.
I'd say that was even the case with even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember running some of my first ultras, and it was like, no dissing on like the old dudes because they're tough as heck, but old dudes in just like not running apparel, you know, just out there, just gutting it out. And then I'd like run by and they're like, you're too young to be out here, and I'm 27 or whatever, 25. Right. And I am like, back then I was like one of the only females, definitely younger than most. And then I felt like fast forward 10 years and there's like split shorts and handhelds at 100 milers. And I'm like, that guy's going to bonk and like totally crumble. And then he like wins and you're like, holy crap, what's happening? So I've seen a huge shift in the sport, and I actually just bought a shirt that says "Make ultra marathons lame again."
Okay.
And
I like that.
I'm going to stand by that because I like loved the old mom and pop, 100 miler that no one gives a shit that you're out there running. They're like, get it done or go home. We don't care. But yeah, so that's been a huge change. It's gotten younger. It's gotten faster. It's gotten sexier.
Yeah.
And then I think my like personal mission with the sport, and I know that it's just like kind of going this way, and so I'm hopping on that wagon, but is making it very apparent that like trail running doesn't equal ultra running, and like, hey, check out these other distances, and like making it more approachable and inclusive for people who are just like getting into it. Because as you know, like with COVID, it seems like more people were getting into running in general.
For sure.
And then more people were getting out on trails, and like outdoors weren't closed. So we saw a huge spike in that, but it's like held on. And then with all the live stream and media around trail running and like this influx of like fast baddies from college coming from like track and road and then out onto the trails has just been like, very cool.
It's been wild. I mean, we were just talking about this on the podcast this week, but Ben Blankenship ran I think a 2:16. I think at the McCurdy's micro marathon. He's not even running the trials this year. He's just going straight into a 100-mile like race in Pennsylvania.
Oh,
like he's like, I'm just jumping straight into ultra running.
And he's young.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I feel like that would be unheard of 5 years ago.
Yeah, I remember when there was like an uproar when Andrew Miller was running for Salomon years ago. He was like 19 and he won Western States.
Yeah.
And there was like, he shouldn't be running. He's too young.
Right.
And now, I mean, 23 or whatever is like older than that, but it's definitely more accepted that there's like younger people out on the trails for sure.
Yeah.
That's wild.
What do you think it is about trail running that maybe is a little bit intimidating for people? Because you said trail running used to equate ultra running. And I think even aside from that, some people who maybe start running during the pandemic or call themselves casual runners, trails seem a little bit intimidating. And I never realized that because I guess maybe because I grew up hiking and being in the outdoors and doing stuff like that, it was a pretty quick transition for me. But I feel like a lot of people are somewhat intimidated by trails if they never run them before. What do you think is kind of the barrier there?
I think there's quite a few that I didn't really think of when I started. Like I mentioned, like I've always just been, what are you doing? Can I come sort of person?
Yeah.
Or just like, I saw this thing and I want to do it. Or I saw this thing and I'm going to go try it. And I don't ever think of what could go wrong. And that's kind of a weakness of mine, that I'm just winging it. And after I was a wilderness guide, I started working specifically with groups that focus on getting women outdoors. And whether that was like taking women on backpacking trips, taking them climbing, or just having running clinics. Okay. And I was just shocked at how many things there are that people are afraid of. So it's like the terrain, the weather, predators, whether that's men or animals.
I think the animals thing is a big one.
And it's fascinating because I have been running the same trails for so long, and I know there are mountain lions there, but I've never seen one, and I know there are coyotes and I hear them barking and stuff, but they're not just like out for blood,
right?
So that's a funny one to me, but there are a lot of barriers for safety for women. And I hate that. I hate that I've never even thought about like a sketchy dude being in the bushes because I live in this world where I'm never going to get anything wrong with me. But there's so many women that are like, what about a guy being out there?
I'd say that one probably makes sense.
Yeah. And I run alone at 5 a.m. on the trails by myself, like just all the time. And I've never thought about it. And then I started to think about it and I was like, oh, that is scary. Especially if you have like a homeless population or something, you know? So there are a lot of barriers. And then they're like, do you run with mace? I'm like, no. Do you run with a knife? No, but I probably should. Like not a knife, but like I don't run with anything. That's crazy. But I think for women specifically, it can be like having a friend group, having people to do it with you. So it's not as intimidating because I think any sport can be kind of cliquey from the outside. Yeah. And I don't think we try to be, definitely. Like I think trail running's not, but maybe that's because I'm in it, you know? Yeah. From the outside, it's kind of like, whoa, everyone's doing their thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think all those things are a little bit intimidating to people. I think even just the idea of how do you run on a trail or what do you wear
and like where do you look, people are like, where do I look, because there's just things coming at me all the time, you know, there's like it's technical. And so being like, how do you slow down to turn a corner, how do you just any little like things I've never thought of, because I'm just like,
the funny thing too is that I don't think that like as far as footwear, you can wear a road shoe for most trails and generally like you'll be okay. Yeah. It's not going to be the best, but even people we run with running the Nike Pegasus for trails just,
and you guys have, I feel like
fairly technical trails.
You have more technical trails out here. Like some of what I run in Utah is like so buffed out. You could totally just wear whatever. And I would say that's probably one of the least concerns is their footwear.
I definitely.
Yeah, they're like, there's so many other options, or so many other things like rattling around in their heads that I was like, wow, I didn't think of that.
Yeah. I'd say, interestingly, I was watching White Fang, the movie, this past week. Yeah, like this past week with my kids.
Wow.
And
90s are alive and well.
Oh, yeah. Ethan Hawke, by the way, fantastic. And he's one of my favorite actors, I feel like. So
that was a good one. Telling someone that they look like him, and they're like, who?
What? Fire them as a friend.
Goodbye.
Yeah. And at the end, they had a thing that said, you know, the animals were all treated well, yada, yada. And there's never been a documented death by wolf attack in North America. Does that, to a human, does that seem like a false statement?
Are you bringing up animal attacks? Because it's my favorite.
Actually, I wasn't. We were talking about animal attacks earlier. I wasn't, but I thought that seemed
that sounds right. I mean,
pretty unbelievable. Because you just think that wolves would have killed a person at some point.
They're afraid of us.
Yeah.
As are most animals. Like, I mean, when I was a wilderness guide, like bears would walk through our camp, black bears, and you just stand up and go, hey. And they run off.
Yeah, as long as you don't try to throw a saddle on them and do a rodeo, you're probably going to be okay.
Or if you don't have like a jar of peanut butter and jerky in your hand.
Hanging out your back pocket.
But for the most part, I think wild animals are more afraid of us than we are of them, you know, the old saying.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I'd say it personally, the only thing I'd be a little bit scared about on the East Coast is rattlesnakes in maybe some overgrown trails and stuff like that, because that actually happened to me last summer where I was running on the AT up in PA and a thru hiker was coming through and she was like, watch out back there, because it's overgrown, and she was clearing it out with her walking stick and there was a timber rattler like right in the middle of the trail. And if I would have came through 5 minutes earlier, I'd step right on it, you know.
Spoiler.
So like, which would have been a cool story if I would have lived. But
see, that's what I'm here for, is the story. Like, I would be honored to be attacked by a mountain lion.
Yeah, I mean,
like, how cool!
Until you look in the mirror and your face is gone.
I mean, it can't be worse than it already is.
No comment. I'm just kidding. But yeah, the mountain lion thing is crazy because you think I could probably take a mountain lion, and then when you try and just even hold a cat like in someone's house. You think there's no way. Yeah,
and this is not related, but sort of related, because as I told you, I love this like wild animal attack podcast.
Yeah.
But
is that what it's called? Wild Animal Attack Podcast?
No.
It's called Tooth and...
Oh, great. We're going to plug it.
Yeah. Tell me.
Okay. It's the very best wild animal podcast line right now. It's
all
called
platforms.
Tooth and Claw.
I definitely have listened to this podcast before.
They're from Utah. They're from Salt Lake. And Wes is like a wild animal or like bear biologist. And I think he got a big like following when he got a picture posted by National Geographic where he was like climbing into a bear den to collar it when it was hibernating, but it was like awake and looking at him, and he was like, oh no.
Oh, so he actually went on a bear hunt and went over the mud and everything.
Well, that's what he does is he like climbs into bear dens and puts collars on them when they're hibernating so that they can track them. And especially ones that are in weird places.
Hold up, this is a job?
Yeah.
That's a job.
He's a wild animal. He's a bear biologist, and he's worked with polar bears.
No way is the easiest way to do it. That's the easiest way is lassoing a bear while they're sleeping.
No, they're sleeping, so you sneak up on them and you put it on them when they're sleeping. So, yeah, this is where I'm getting back to that quote we just said. Like, we have two lives. Like, don't you want to now be a bear biologist?
In a way, yes.
So cool. But anyway, bear claws are as big as a Coke can. And I assume that...
and you're not talking about the treats that you get at the Danishes, right? Those bear claws?
No.
Because those are even bigger.
Bear talons.
Yeah, okay.
But then I would imagine that mountain lions are close to that. I should Google it. But yeah, you think of like how feisty a house cat is, and then one that's like 6 feet long or something.
It'd be I mean, if you had the chance to wrestle one without the sharp things on it, I think it would be an interesting, like, just to see, just
but
to know.
I learned too that their teeth are spaced in a way that they can attack a deer, and their teeth slide into their vertebrae and sever their
what?
What's that called? Your spinal cord.
Yeah.
And just immediately dead, paralyzed, and that's like evolution.
Oh my
Boom.
gosh, dude! It's like taking a piece of a candy necklace off.
Yeah,
but
just
deer style.
And their vertebrae just goes everywhere. I hope that all of the stuff I'm saying is correct, but I think so.
I don't think anyone's going to Google it, so
don't
we're good.
Google it. No, Google it and then hit me up if it's wrong, because I will do a corrections corner. I'll be back in.
I mean, does the bear biologist, does he run? Because I want to because we might have to have him on the podcast.
I bet he can.
Tell him to start running.
Okay, let's do it. He lives in Montana now, I think.
I mean, I can't imagine going into a bear cave. The first time you do that, your heart rate has to be through the roof.
Yeah. He brought his little brother on that trip because he needed like an assistant.
He needed a sacrifice.
Yeah. And he just said his little brother was like freaking out. I don't know. I mean,
he's like, this last bit of the cave is too small. You go first.
Yeah, he's like, just go up there and rustle around a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very fascinating podcast. I've learned a lot of useless information, but I also, one of the athletes I just was working with and ended up signing, I met her at a barbecue after Broken Arrow last year, and she and I just talked about Tooth and Claw because I was like on this rampage of being like, have you heard of this podcast? It's so good. And then when I reached out to her again to talk to her about running for Salomon, she was like, oh, by the way, I told my entire family about Tooth and Claw, and we listen to it all the time.
No
and I was
way.
like, well, at least something good came out of this
All
relationship.
right, I'm definitely checking it out.
Okay.
I think,
Let's talk about something else.
Yeah, I mean, you brought.
I brought it up as my fault.
As much as I don't want to change the subject, I can talk about this probably for 3 hours.
Should we start an animal podcast?
I think it's a good idea because we live on different coasts, and you deal with different wildlife out there.
Yeah.
And I do here.
We could cover the whole country.
So you could bring it all together.
'Cause I know a thing or two about squirrels that I'd love to share with you.
Oh yeah, the colonizer squirrels who came into our country and invaded the space
To make people happy.
Yeah, they're that doesn't surprise me at all. Squirrels have that kind of. I mean, they're squirrely. We can talk about that on another podcast, but yeah, and I'm a big fan of snakes, so I'd love to get some
There's a lot
inside knowledge about West Coast snakes.
Oh yeah, we have rattlesnakes just like you. We have gopher snakes that parade around as rattlesnakes. They look just like them, but they're smaller.
Really?
Well, they look just like them, but they don't rattle, and they're not rattlesnakes, and they're not poisonous. But that's how they like defend themselves. So it's sneaky. I don't think half of the snakes people see in Utah are actual rattlesnakes.
Yeah, people always think everything's a water
That's
moccasin.
a hot take. Yeah.
Like anything that swims is a water moccasin. I'm like, dude, that's a freaking water snake.
Well, any fish that bumps into me is a piranha, so I get it.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
It's
They've escaped the aquarium. But have you ever seen a San Francisco garter snake?
I don't think so.
It's
I used to have garter snakes.
It's the most beautiful
pets.
snake in the world, in my opinion.
Whoa.
And
it's like teal?
Yeah, they're native to basically the San Francisco area. That's their home.
Wouldn't you think that was like a shoelace or something?
Yeah,
I've never
that
seen
might be a new
colors like
design
that.
language for the next Salomon shoe. You
Okay,
might
and
want to
we'll
check
call it
that
the
out.
San Francisco Gardner Snake trail running shoe.
Yeah.
That rolls right off your tongue, really.
Yeah, it really does. Well, speaking of running shoes, and since we were talking about kind of the hurdles for getting into running, whether that's snakes or wolves or just trail shoes in general, you guys have a trail series, the Golden Trail Series.
Yes.
And that's a series of events throughout the year. And it's kind of it's a series where it's a competitive series, but then there's other events within that are meant for, how many distance? A lot of distances.
Yeah, there's a lot of different
For
opportunities.
for anyone to jump in.
For sure.
So can you tell me more about that? What that series entails and how it's accessible for maybe even people who've never run trails before.
Yeah.
Or race trails, at least.
It's kind of cool. The Golden Trail World Series started in 2018. And it was just basically created to get the best athletes competing against each other because it would be fascinating.
Yeah.
And then also to celebrate trail running and get these communities together and just celebrate community and like culture and the sport, essentially. I wasn't in my role just yet. And the person before me, I don't know, just didn't want to get on board or something with the Golden Trail National Series.
Okay.
But one of the world stops was Pikes Peak. So they came through the US and we kind of saw like what that looks like what that could be.
Yeah.
And then we were sort of getting on board, but then when the pandemic happened, we took it all to Strava and it was like, do these segments and they're the golden segment.
Okay.
And so people were going out and trying to set like the FKT on a segment and then they got to go, then they're like the champions of this thing and it was very competitive.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really interesting and unique, I thought.
Was the incline one of those segments?
No, but the Skyline, like Boulder Skyline Trail was.
Yeah.
Incline's freaking tough. Have you done it?
I walked it before. I can't believe people, like I was looking at the record times by Kilian Jornet or people like that.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
I don't know.
It was like 15 minutes to the top.
15?
Yeah.
Well, I know Remy Bonnet I think he has the record now and he did it the day before us and we had that time in our mind and now I'm like questioning what it was. I thought it was like 40 minutes or something, but.
No, the record is in the 15 range because.
Maybe I just misunderstood him 50 for 15.
Yeah.
He has an accent.
No, because I think we did, I forget what we did it in, but I hiked it. I
did too.
That thing's ridiculous because the steps on it are kind of spaced apart, whereas
not
hard
uniform. Let's write a letter.
It's like whenever you try to run on railroad tracks, how the ties are just the right amount apart where you can't really
get like
run
a
on
cadence going.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it changes, and then it's like really steep, and then it's like not level, and it's like
it's wild.
Not very speed conducive.
Anyway.
Yeah,
but it was very cool. Anyways.
Very cool. Everyone go to Manitou Springs and do the incline. It's very cool. But okay, so it was on the Strava segments and we saw it kind of like gaining traction.
Yeah.
And so we're like, all right, now's the time to bring it to the US. And so we brought a few other races into the calendar and did them as national stops. Golden Trail World Series still stopped at Pikes Peak as a world, and then now it was a world and national stop, which was like so exciting to see runners coming from like Kenya and like Switzerland and just everywhere and like going against some of the best in our sport in North America. And just to see that go down was very exciting. But then in 23, we had 4 races and it's just getting more and more fun. It was with like live stream going on and just following the top elite athletes. I think it kind of put the races in some cases where people are like, oh, the Golden Trail Series is this like super elite race series, which it is and isn't. But we just announced the calendar for 2024.
Yeah.
And we're bringing on 2 new races, which I'm excited about.
Okay. So tell me, the races that I'm looking at right now, we have Breakneck Point
in New York.
Broken Arrow Sky Race.
Yeah.
That's Tahoe? At Lake Tahoe?
It's at Olympic Valley. And the next one's a new one, Y East.
Okay.
The Y East Trail Fest. that just went out like yesterday. It's so exciting. But
No, I don't even think it's on the website yet.
it's not. I'm in charge of that website, and I'm supposed to do it. I was supposed to do it last night, but we got in so late, and I was like, I'm so tired.
Snap. Okay.
And then so Y East is at Mount Hood, and that's going to be so fun and cool. And then we had Jeffrey Stern, who's the race director for the Headlands 50K. It's in August. And I had asked him about bumping it to September so that it could be part of the World Series.
So is that at the Marin Headlands?
Yeah.
Okay.
And instead of moving his 50K to September, we're going to do a standalone Golden Trail World Series, National Series stop in the Headlands.
Oh, man, maybe you'll see a San Francisco garter snake there.
I'm like, that's now my one goal. Everybody watch out.
Ask him to make sure there's one there.
Okay. Maybe he has a pet one. For all we know. But that one's really exciting because I was in Italy in October and the World Series finale was in Italy, and they did the men's race on one day and the women's race on a different day, and so they could like cheer each other on. And cool. It was really cool to see the women out there without the men and just like pushing really hard, and like it was very unique and way cooler than I thought it was going to be. Like just very very cool. So that'll be I believe it's the 14th and 15th of September.
Okay.
And then the following weekend is the national final and World Series final in Mammoth, Tim Tollefson's race, the Mammoth Trail Fest. So super excited about all of
that is cool.
Those things. It's like the coolest calendar. They're like some of the most beautiful, iconic, just sought after races in the US. And the people we get to partner with are awesome. Like they're just on board. They're like, they've got all the right things in mind. Like when it comes to inclusivity, just equality, culture, accessibility.
So tell me, touching on that, how are these? Because when you talk about them and say, oh, they're in these beautiful places, of course, there's elites running it. It's part of this championship series. How does that equate to the average runner? How can they get involved? Because it sounds almost. I think a lot of when you're talking about intimidation stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes people see races like this and they're like, I don't belong there.
For sure.
How does that, myself included,
also me.
How do people like me, or I guess you, fit into that?
Oh yeah, you were checking my ultrasound.
Yeah, do you want me to start talking about that?
Mid-pack. Yeah, so that's what, like some of the criteria of the races that we choose for the Golden Trail Series are that they're absolutely like community focused, and all but the Marin Headlands one is, well, even that's 2 days, and we're really bringing the like expo village, like vendor village vibe. So Broken Arrow, I feel like kind of paved the way for me on that, because it's like, we kick things off on Thursday evening with the shakeout run with a bunch of athletes, and then it wraps up Sunday afternoon, and it's just kind of hour by hour scheduling, something that you can watch, something you can do. And then for Broken Arrow and like Mammoth specifically, those guys have like the full range of distances from a kid's K, like a kid's 1K.
That's cool.
So you bring the kids all the way up to an ultra marathon of like, a high 40K or 50K at Mammoth. And then there's like the vertical K.
Okay.
And like other distances too, but
there's like a 23.
Yeah, 20. The Golden Trail Series distances always range between like 23 and 28K.
Okay.
So that's a really approachable distance.
Okay.
And you don't have to be running the Golden Trail Series to run those distances.
Gotcha.
All are welcome, and it's very exciting to be out. It's like we get to go play basketball with like the Michael Jordans, right? Like
that is pretty cool.
It's cool. Yeah. You just get to be out there. There's no like waved. Like you're not starting in waves. You could be up in the start line with, the best of the world, and
that's amazing.
It's amazing. So all are welcome to those Golden Trail Series distances. But then there's an 11K at Broken Arrow, which is super, like I can wrap my mind around that.
Yeah.
It's like less than 7 miles, I think. But just out on the trails, beautiful.
And this is, sorry, I was looking at the Broken Arrow. So that's an Olympic Valley. And yeah, it seems like you get a decent amount of elevation.
Yeah.
Like it looks a little challenging for maybe the longer distances.
Yeah.
But you probably get some awesome views out there.
Yeah. Really great views. You come up this one spot, you're like on the ridge, and you get to the high point and you can see Lake Tahoe off to the side. There's always snow up there. So you can kind of just like bomb down in the snow. One year there was still skiing happening, so we're like running
wow.
next to people skiing. And then the next weekend, Western States 100 is the following weekend from Broken Arrow. So there's just like a lot of people that are running states are in town, so they're kind of kicking around the vendor village. It's just this really fun weekend.
So it's kind of just like a festival party vibe in a way.
Yeah, for sure. There's like a film showed every night, or like the I can't remember what it's called, but the Trails in Motion film festival on one night, and then just like we'll show some Salomon TV episodes. There's athlete panels, there's other like educational panels, there's athlete meet and greets, there's workshops for like newer runners to learn how to run with poles, or like anything like that. So
I need to go to that one.
I know. There's just a little bit of everything like going on throughout the weekend, and it's like
yeah. And what was I gonna say about the
Are you playing Candy Crush?
No, I'm like looking at the race website, and I'm trying to like take in all the information.
Yeah. It is a lot.
Because there's a lot of different, like the distances and the routes and everything. I'm just looking at the pictures of these people running, and I'm like, man, that looks awesome.
Yeah.
Which one is your favorite? Not to pick favorites, but if you had to pick one that's
the races out of Broken Arrow or out of the whole series?
Out of the whole series.
I don't have a favorite child.
All right.
I will say I haven't been to the New York one at Breakneck, and I'm going this year, so I'll be out in New York. That one's like May 5th.
Okay.
And I haven't been to the one at Mount Hood, the Y East one, so I'm going to go to that one this year as well.
Okay.
But I will be at all of them, which is exciting, and I'll get back to you and tell you which one's my favorite.
Nice. I like it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool, just especially the accessibility part, because again, I feel like there's trail running has been ultra running for so long, and you always hear the jokes about people doing like trying to recruit their family to do a vacation with them at they're like, we're going on vacation, and it's really them running at a 100 miler
runcation. Yeah.
But this actually seems like it could be legitimately fun for everyone.
Yeah, and
because it has the kid stuff and things like that.
And especially when you think of like Mount Hood or Mammoth or Broken Arrow. I mean, you could take the kids, or you could have a weekend of mountain biking. You could go paddle around on the lake.
True. Mm-hmm.
And then like with San Francisco, the headlands, I mean, you could go catch those snakes.
Yeah.
You could probably go sailing, do like rich people stuff.
mean, the headlands are right across the bridge from downtown, basically, right? Yeah.
So there's like a lot of, I mean, I have a bunch of girlfriends that like, we've just done like running vacations. Like you go to a place because you're running this race, and it's like, then what do you do? You know, you stay for a few days and like do other stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's these really cool destinations.
And it's nice too, because it's not 100-mile race, so your legs aren't going to be completely cooked the next day.
I was trying to
although for me, they probably would still be.
I know there's so much vert, and like your lungs will be cooked because you're coming from like such low elevation.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping you come.
Do you have any tips for people that live in an area like me that's at 0 or sea level elevation? And everyone says that humidity is the poor man's elevation. I have not found that to be true in my life.
Man, I hate running in humidity.
I mean, I don't feel like it translates to when I
sucks.
go out west. I'm like, that did nothing.
Maybe it's a mental thing. Like if you can run mentally in humidity, you can push through.
Maybe that's
elevation.
What it is.
I don't think that's what they mean, but I'm going to take it that way because I agree with you. I bet like an actual runner has tips for running at altitude.
An actual runner.
I freaking love running, but I'm not good at it.
I just don't find that to be true.
Maybe if you like run with a paper bag. No, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you know, when people train for things like the Death Valley, what's the race? The Badwater.
They're like in the sauna.
Yeah, they'll wear puffer coats in July. Like
you're like doing like
them.
punching moves in the hot sauna, and you're like, what's that guy doing?
It's basically a Rocky montage, but just their own personal training.
Yeah, I guess you could do that. I think I also heard that heat is a poor man's elevation. Or why are we saying poor man?
Oh yeah, like they can't afford elevations. That's why they have to do
like mountain. I live in a mountain town, and it's way cheaper than Baltimore.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's like the rich man's elevation is elevation.
Whoa.
You think
We're like coming up with some good nuggets on this.
Put that on a shirt too.
Yeah.
Carl, are you keeping track of all the shirt slogans?
A rich man's elevation is that elevation.
Is just elevation.
It's just what it is. Oh my gosh.
That is kind of true though, if you think about it, because pretty much are there any mountain towns that are still cheap to live in? I have no idea.
Je ne sais pas. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure
there has to be somewhere, right?
Probably mountains that don't like get snow.
Yeah.
Because skiers are
I mean, West Virginia, I guess. You could plenty of those.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you'd call those mountains out.
I wouldn't personally.
Yeah. Well, you're fired. You're fired as East Coast community manager.
Oh man.
You're done. Yeah, no, I think that might be a place. You should maybe look about doing a trail race in West Virginia at some point.
You know, I came out, maybe that was just the regular Virginia. I ran in
not the one that
Central Virginia.
John Denver wrote a song about.
West Virginia. Oh yeah. But yeah, I liked the trails a lot. I remember back when Instagram wasn't like what it is. I remember just like going ham and posting so many pictures from when I ran in Virginia or West Virginia or wherever
Do you know
I was.
Was it a race that you did?
I did a Ragnar.
Oh, okay.
Because we used to sponsor those.
Gotcha.
But it was a trail Ragnar.
Yeah.
And I remember getting a hat that said wherever I was, but that's not helpful because I don't know what it said.
I survived.
Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah.
I survived one of the Virginias.
What's your favorite place that you've run?
Oh, holy smokes. The Dolomites in Italy.
Oh, that sounds cool. Yeah.
I dream about it every night.
Really?
Well, I did
every night?
I force myself to. I like look at pictures as I'm falling asleep. I'm going to tattoo it on the inside of my eyeballs. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Originally, I had booked a trip to go to Italy, and I thought, so I started base jumping recently, and there's well, I started like 2 years ago.
No way. You're really trying to get close to that line, aren't you?
Just the line of being cool.
Of dying.
Who cares?
I love it.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm always like, there's worse ways to go.
That is true.
There's this cliff there that is supposed to be like a great first cliff because I'm learning on a bridge. And like you can't smash into a cliff if you're on a bridge because it's open space below you. So you're like safe.
You're saying you learn on a bridge where you live now?
In Twin Falls, Idaho.
Okay.
So there's a bridge up there that's legal year round. There's not a lot of legal. I think it's the only legal bridge in the U.S. There's one in Virginia that they open one weekend of the year, and it's called Bridge Day. Yeah. And they'll like catapult people off of it, but you have to like get invited or something. I've never been, but it's the only legal bridge in the U.S. And I've done like 22 jumps off of that. But then I was like, oh, by that time I'll be ready to jump Brento in Italy, and then I just kind of like wussed out. But then I was like, I'll just book a hut to hut trip, and so I ran the like hut trip on the Alta Via one. Mm-hmm. And it's just so stupid how pretty it is.
Really?
Yeah. And I was supposed to go to Patagonia on the 10th of this month, but I've been traveling so much by myself. Like I just did the TMB from France to Italy to Switzerland back to France. It's 100 miles and it's a race. It's the UTMB race. Oh, okay. But I like did it in 4 days and stayed at huts. But I did it by myself, and I got to like a pretty sad point because I had just dropped out of a 100-miler like the weekend before, and I was just in a sad place. Oh, yeah. And I was like, I can't do Patagonia by myself. I just don't think I'm wanting to do solo trips anymore. But I bet that's just as pretty, maybe prettier. Yeah. It looks really pretty. But Dolomites for sure.
Yeah, the Dolomites look amazing. I mean, that's definitely a spot that would be cool to visit. So it's cool that you got to do that. So how many miles a day did you do between the huts?
The first day was like 16, and then from then it was like
nice.
In the 30s.
Oh, wow.
And the second day from Courmayeur to like Champelac, I think is how you say it.
Oh, yeah. Don't look at me when you say that because I'll say you're wrong any way you pronounce it.
Yeah, that was like maybe one of the hardest things I ever did. I have this like 3-minute long video on my phone of being like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Why am I out here?
I just like try to translate that on my phone and see what comes up and then say that word.
Oh, yeah.
It turns out.
Champelac.
Yeah.
But I ran from
Champagne, right?
It's like Champex. That's what it looks like. Champex.
Really? Dude, that's you throw an X in there, that's way too confusing. Get that out of here.
But French, you just say the first 2 letters and drop the rest.
Yeah.
But it went from, Italy to Switzerland, and it was so freaking hard.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, Switzerland has some crazy base jumping places, huh?
Yeah. I went to Switzerland on that trip also, and there's someone jumping the Eiger. Just I was like having breakfast at a little chalet and like freaking wingsuits are buzzing overhead. And I was like, hey,
Yeah.
my people.
That's cool.
Yeah, very cool. It's so like wild over there. I love it. But Switzerland's like another one that's really pretty. And I think in the US, like I live about 4 hours south of the Tetons in the Wyoming.
Okay.
In the Wyoming state.
Yeah.
Roaming Wyoming. But I think the Tetons are like the most beautiful place in the US that I've ran.
Yeah. There's a pretty, I've never run there. I've just driven through them, but it looked pretty awesome out the window.
Yeah. And you can like get up on the middle Teton without having to do like technical climbing.
Okay.
So you can do quite a few of the big, that's like my favorite thing is just like big mountain summits.
Yeah.
So you can get on some really cool mountains out there.
Man. So what do you think, what's the natural progression of these hobbies? Where do you go from, what do you think's next after base jumping?
Me personally?
Have you ever done free soloing?
No, I'm not that good of a
crazy,
climber.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not crazy, I guess, if you're super talented, but.
Yeah, I think it gets to a point, like I was just reading a book called Dopamine Nation.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like halfway through it.
Right.
But they were saying that like parts of people's brains that like fire when there's fear and dopamine and adrenaline like don't fire in like Alex Honnold's brain.
Really?
Because he's that like free solo dude.
Yeah.
And that's not because he wasn't born with it, but you like train it out of yourself. Like I can like sleep on the plane ride to altitude when we're going to jump. Like I'm just so not nervous anymore.
That
So I
becomes
think,
whatever produced that adrenaline rush before becomes your baseline.
yeah.
So
but then it's like burnout, man. And then there's times where I like do something that should be really pretty or really fun and like give me that boost of dopamine. And I'm like,
no way.
And it sucks. So I'm trying to reset my nervous system.
You need to go in a sensory deprivation tank or something.
Yeah. I need like a hard reset. Turn it off, turn it back on again. But I don't know what the next move is. I think I've been really conservative. I sold all my wingsuit stuff and then I got into paragliding for a bit and sold that. That was kind of boring. But I don't know. I'm open for suggestions.
Okay. Yeah. If anyone has suggestions about something extreme to do, like what about free diving? That's kind of a interesting
hot
one.
take.
Yeah.
I don't know how to swim. Not even kind of. Not even a little.
No way. Really?
I'm so scared of
water.
water.
Wow, your family was indoorsy. They weren't even indoor pooly.
The first time we went to like a situation where we'd have to swim, we were with my cousins and me and my two sisters, basically like all three of us at the same time almost drowned because we just jumped in oh, people know how to swim. And then it was like pulling us out because we didn't know how. But I did just order a pack raft. Do you know what that is?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I want to get into some like deep backcountry and then just float my way out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be fun.
Not swimming is a wild one. Isn't that, but base jumping off a bridge, what if you're like, oh, if I go in the water, then it's like game over.
So the winds come at one direction or another. And like the way you land your parachute depends on the winds. And if there's a situation where if I overhear anyone say you might land in the water, I'm like, well, I'm going home. Like there's just no situation where I can land in the water. I will lose my mind and I will drown to my dying watery grave.
Imagine, I mean, that'd be the most unpredictable thing ever if you drowned while base jumping.
Yeah.
It wasn't the base jumping that got you, really.
They're like, she was fine.
Yeah. Oh, man. Maybe you could invent, you know, how you're talking about these parachutes that you pack. Maybe you could invent like an inflatable parachute. I don't even know how that works.
Well, what I really want, and I do a lot of canyoneering, which is like going in slot canyons, and sometimes there's water in them, and I'll have to have my partner just like pull me with the rope because I can't swim, and it's too deep to touch.
Really?
So I just like hope that they can pull me really fast. And
that's a crazy trust amount you have in your partner.
And I try, and like there's like dry bags, and you can like fill them up and hold on to them, and they like are buoyant. But yeah, I only go into those canyons with people I trust. But I was like, what if someone out there might know this, and this is the biggest opportunity I've ever had. So to talk to the public, like a life jacket that's like fast and light, sporty, minimal, but you blow it up with your mouth.
Yeah.
Like with a straw.
That doesn't exist?
I don't think so. I Googled it and I was like getting some cool military type stuff.
That's what I thought. Don't they have those in the military?
Maybe they're not for people like me. I don't know. But
isn't that basically a kid floaty though?
Maybe, but it fits an adult and it is like packable.
They're like,
in my
the
mind.
market segment's so small that
they're like, why would someone is out there like, I told you this is a market. Yeah. But as soon as I have a life jacket on, I feel invincible. Like, man. I'm just like, I'll do anything. I'll jump off anything into any body of water.
Yeah.
But
that's amazing.
And I guess just recently I did do hot air balloon jumps and helicopter jumps.
Oh,
That's kind of
yeah.
a cool next thing. That's like really fun. Those are really fun.
Dude, you're one step away from a Zephyr jump, bringing back the 1700s or whatever.
Yeah, okay.
When was the last time Zephyrs were cool? I don't even know.
They're still cool.
Are they?
Probably. I don't even know what that is. Is that like the wooden balloon?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the difference between a Zephyr and a blimp, but Zephyr sounds way cooler.
It does.
Or a Zeppelin. Yeah.
Is that also a balloon?
Yeah, hold on. I need to Google this. Zephyr versus Zeppelin versus...
I feel like they're two kinds of guitars or something.
Well, one of them was a band. But I guess they're... Okay, Zeppelins and blimps are two types of airships. Both are self-propelled with lighter than air gas and are steered by pilots, so somewhat similar. But it says Zeppelins are rigid... is a rigid airship, so I think it has a framework. Yeah, that's what it is.
The Zeppelin?
Yeah, whereas a blimp is kind of just a balloon. Does that make sense?
But that's funny because I feel like the Goodyear blimp, you could ride in it, but they called it a blimp because Goodyear's Zephyr's Zeppelin didn't sound good.
Maybe. The Hindenburg was in 1937. That's the one
that caught on fire?
Yeah, that was very
tragic.
I think maybe if that hadn't happened, we'd still be using them today. But did you know that in the Civil War, the hot air balloons were first used as reconnaissance to see the troops, what they were doing on the other side?
How often do you think those got shot down?
Probably not shot down, but I bet they landed in enemy territory quite often. I mean, could you imagine that? Drifting
really
down into...
No, I can't imagine that. I don't want to know. No,
but
it's such a silent way of getting in. That's smart.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about
undetected.
it, if you want to see where the enemy has their troops laid out, you have to get higher up.
Yeah.
So that's the only way.
You know, it was fascinating on that balloon jump that I did. He could take 3 jumpers at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that the winds were doing this thing where he's like, I think we can go straight up. You guys can jump out and I'll be able to basically like land the balloon right about where we took off.
I thought you were going to say he could catch you like somehow. Like in the basket. That'd be cool.
Well, now this seems way more boring.
Sorry.
But like we get up to like 1,000 feet and there's just like a layer of wind doing something that he wasn't predicting, and it was going to like 20 miles an hour. So the balloon just starts moving so fast. And then like the people that were going to go on that second load or whatever, like the second time up, just didn't get to go because he was like way in the heck, way gone. And I was like, that is weird. Like you can't steer it.
Yeah.
So those ones going into enemy, no thanks. Like who knows? They just probably didn't tell him like this may or may not end up.
So you still can't steer a hot air balloon, really?
Not to my knowledge. No, I think you can go up and down.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And then you just stand on the edge of the basket and jump? Is that what you do?
Well, I've done a couple, and it is usually that you just stand on the rim of the basket.
Yeah.
But this guy like built a platform off the side.
No
and
way.
so I'm like just standing on the side. It was way less scary than like standing on the edge of this like wicker basket, you know? It was like this little diving board. And I just fell backwards like this.
Whoa.
It was so cool. But anyway.
They need to put that inside that Oculus. Like, you know how have you ever done the Facebook Quest, Meta Quest?
No. I'm 40.
One
I'm like, I don't do
No,
VR.
it's not I mean,
Is it VR?
it's not age dependent. But yeah, it's VR, so you go up an elevator and you walk out on a plank on a 100-story building or whatever, and then you jump off. And it feels like you're falling the whole way to the ground.
Why?
Why do you do it?
Why do you feel like you're falling?
It's that's your mind takes over and it gives you all the feels of sky.
You're not like in a weird body.
No, it makes you feel exactly as if you would have jumped off a building. And then, except when you hit the ground, instead of blowing to pieces, it feels pretty, well, obviously it feels soft. You're standing there.
Well, that's sort of trippy. I've never heard of anything like that.
It's terrifying. It's super hard to do it.
What do you mean super hard to do it?
Like no one in my family could do it.
Whoa.
I did it, but
Do you regret it?
it took me a while to do it.
Was it scary? Did it stay with you?
Oh no, didn't stay with me.
That sounds scary. I have dreams quite often.
It's scary.
When I'm not dreaming about the Dolomites, I'm dreaming about falling out of an airplane without a parachute, and then I like hit the
Are you
ground.
kidding
but, like,
me?
Not very hard, and I just stand up, and I'm like, did anyone see that? And
That's the
everyone's just going on about their day, and I'm like, I just fell out of an airplane.
That's the feeling. That's
Yeah,
what it
where
felt
you're
like.
yeah.
That's a crazy dream to have. I don't know, man. I might have to hit the reboot button to start my dream sequence over.
I don't normally talk about dreams because anytime someone's like, I had this dream, I'm like, oh, great. Like, it's someone else's dreams are very
they're always the worst.
rarely interesting to you.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't care, please stop.
I
And
think
then I'm like going on and on about mine.
there's an Always Sunny episode where Dee's explaining his dreams, and Dennis is like, hold up. He's like, unless anyone's naked or something else, like I'm not. He's like, I don't care about it.
Leave it to Dennis. Man, that show is so good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good one. Oh,
I can only actually watch like 2 episodes because I get like upset because
Yeah.
they're like so crass.
they're horrible
Yeah,
human beings.
Horrible human beings.
But yeah, I think my biggest nightmares, I still sometimes will have waiting table nightmares.
Oh, we were just talking about that where I used to work at a coffee shop.
Yeah.
Like basically the way I got my job at Salomon is I was like everyone at Salomon's barista across the street.
Okay.
And they're like, you're so nice. You should come work at Salomon. And I was like,
See, that's where the career arc started. Okay, so going back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. If
As
you want to
this
be a community or a sports marketing manager, start off as a barista.
yeah, I think it really helped me get the conversational and relationship skills that I have today.
I think that's a huge part of it.
Ding.
Yeah. So you still have like you're stacked up on orders and stuff. Those kind of nightmares.
No, yeah, like in my dream,
like
I'm just
lines.
like pulling shots.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like loading that little thing and like tamping it and like putting it in the espresso machine. And I'm like, I just worked a 3-hour shift in my sleep. This is
Right?
bullshit.
Yeah. Man, that is one of the worst feelings is when you're just. I mean, it's crazy to think like that's actual. People always talk about traumatic things and what's trauma. That's actual trauma. It hangs with you.
You're like, I just worked an 8-hour shift in my sleep, and now I have to go do an 8-hour shift in real life, and
like
nothing's worse.
I haven't worked in a restaurant in 10 years or something.
Whoa.
And it's like I still will have, not often, but every few months
I
have
wonder what it means.
one of those dreams. It's just so embedded inside of your.
Yeah, it's
your
just deep
mind.
down in there. Yeah, I'm not one of those people that's like, what does the dream mean? Because
Yeah.
who cares? But
Oh, I'd be trying to figure out why I don't have teeth all the time.
that's like a public speaking thing or like embarrassment thing, isn't it?
I'm not sure why I'm having that then.
No idea.
I don't think that's the issue.
Okay, so
I thought it was a
everyone-
stress thing, but
Oh yeah, you are right. Actually, I was remembering it's one of the things that
or tidal waves, is that a stress thing? Because I have those too.
anything with water, like if I have water dream, I like wake up screaming.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Whoa. Night terrors.
Yeah, or just not like screaming, but like
Oh,
one
okay.
scream.
I thought it was like actual screams where people were calling the police.
No, I'll just be like in a wave and then wake up like because I'm drowning or something.
Whoa.
It makes
You should learn how to swim. It might take care of that.
Well, okay. It's been my New Year's resolution, my one and only New Year's resolution for like 4 years,
Oh.
5 years,
So
10
that
years.
seems to be working
Probably
out.
forever. But I've gotten like a coach and they're just like, I don't know, dude, just freaking swim.
Yeah.
Like I've had a person tell me, just swim. And I'm like,
So they're basically calling you dumb. Like, just do it. Like,
yeah.
that's
They get to
messed
the
up.
point where they're like, I don't know how, like if you
That's messed up,
were
though.
trying to teach someone how to walk and if someone like an adult that could like comprehend everything you're saying
Yeah.
and you were like, okay, so you just put your right foot and then your left foot. But they're like, I don't understand the mechanics. What are my hips doing? Like, for some reason, I can't do it.
And by the way, I wasn't saying you're dumb. I mean, they're saying, more or less, they're saying that because they're not actually teaching you. They're just like, oh, I can't.
But it's after like 3 sessions, and they're like, one time a lady thought I was like trying to get like triathlete coaching, I think. And I was like, no, I can't swim. So she had me like put my head under the water and blow bubbles like a child. And then she like held my belly, you know, like you're like swimming on your belly, and she's like holding my belly and like moving me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I am such a child. This is so embarrassing because she was like my age and super fit. And I'm just like, put your head underwater and blow bubbles. I'm like, oh boy. So that's embarrassing, but
Oh, man.
maybe that's why I do all this other stuff to be like, yeah, I can't swim. But anyway, did you see that I jumped out of a hot air balloon?
I mean, that's a good way to compensate for it, I got to say. Like,
Yeah.
if all those other things impressed me way more than swimming, I think swimming is one of the least impressive things I could ever.
I always think about like if I'm on a road trip or something and there's like a body of water, and it seems like most of my friends will be like, we should pull over and just like swim.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
You're like, is
oh,
it
and like
weight?
skinny dipping. Never done
Yeah.
that because it would just be me standing in the shallow end, like naked.
Yeah, you're like, can I wade in that water?
Can I do
'Cause-
some skinny wading
Yeah.
or whatever? Because once water gets up to like here, it like gives me anxiety.
Yeah, I think you need to wait for a bit like a drought to happen, like maybe a world record, like a record-breaking drought, and say I'm in, because then you know the water's going to be 10 feet more shallow than it was.
Then I can swim.
Yeah, I mean you could stand probably anywhere in that lake, so you'll be fine.
Okay, but then it's not swimming.
Yeah, I think you can
I just like if
fake it. I don't know.
man, I think that this is the year I'm gonna learn how to swim.
All right. Well, we'll check back in a year maybe and see what the progress is. If people can follow you on Instagram to see if you've learned how to swim and maybe DM you.
Yeah, please. Only nice things, please.
We'll put your Instagram link in the description.
It's a good one.
I mean, I guess that's pretty much wraps it up. I mean, we could talk about dreams some more, but I think
can we just say about the Golden Trail series?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's the whole reason I wanted to come on here, but I don't think I did a very good job.
I think you did a good job.
Okay, it's very cool.
Yeah.
No. The races are all really fun. The competitive side of it is really fun to watch.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be an elite competitive athlete to come out and say hi. And I'll be at every single one of them this year.
Oh, wow. So people can meet you in person.
Yeah.
Are they allowed to come up and talk to you?
I would freaking love that.
Okay, cool.
We can test out my relationship skills.
Yeah.
Conversation skills.
You're probably one of the few people with full sleeve tattoos
Yeah, it's like not cool anymore.
Yeah. Who's that runner who has like covered in tattoos? That's a trail runner.
The gal?
What's that?
Is that a girl?
Yeah.
A woman?
Yeah.
I bet you're thinking of Katra Corbett.
Yeah, her.
I paced her at the Wasatch 100.
Oh, really?
I didn't even know her. I'd never met her.
Wow.
And someone's like, hey, you guys are both vegan, which I'm not vegan anymore, but you guys are both vegan and have a bunch of tattoos. You should run together. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, she's Dirt Diva 333. Yeah, that's her name on
She's
Instagram.
Got, I don't know, but I think when I met her, she'd already done 100 milers.
Yeah, she's done crazy amount of ultras.
Cuckoo bananas.
Anyways, that's cool. So yeah, definitely say hi to Steff if you're out at the you should be out at the Golden Trail Series. That's where it's at. And you can check out all the races, all the series at what's the actual?
Well, if you go to goldentrailseries.com, give me one more day.
Okay.
And I'll have it updated.
Well, by the time this comes out, it will be
Just give me one more day on top of that.
Okay. All right. Just check it back, and if it's not there, then do one more day. But I'm pretty sure all the races will be on there.
Okay, and we want you, Robbie. We want you to come run one of the races.
Oh, wow. Is that a cordial invite?
Yep.
That's official?
Yes.
Your word is your bond?
Yes.
Okay.
All I have is my word.
All right. I'm there. Like, yes. I would love to. It sounds amazing. I'm training for a 50K right now, so if I can roll that into another 50K. The elevation scares me. The altitude. The altitude scares me.
But like, how do you face your fears?
I guess head on.
There you go.
Yeah, I need to wear a helmet though. So we'll see.
At all times.
Are helmets allowed? I like to wear bike helmets when I'm
but
trail running.
If you wear a helmet, don't talk to me.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
I won't know who you are.
Fair
Just
enough.
kidding. I'll be like, safety first.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much.
It was a lot of fun.
So much fun.
All right. Talk to you later, Steff.
Okay, bye.